Hi, class. All right, so now we're going to start reading the book of Samuel. Right after Ruth comes 1 Samuel. There's actually two. So we're going to start with 1 Samuel chapter 1. And I'm going to start reading these names, which are going to trip my tongue, I'm sure. There was a certain man from Ramathaim, a Zuphite from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, the son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. Whew, all those names. Now, they put those in not just to drive me crazy, but to show us that this is historically accurate. This is a history book, not fiction, not a fairy tale. All right, back to Elkanah. Here's the first reality TV part. He had 2 wives. Now, any man will tell you getting along with one wife takes a lot of is hard enough, but to have 2, it's gonna not go well. He had 2 wives. One was called Hannah, and the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Now, remember, in this culture, children are the most important thing that a woman can do. So this is very sad for Hannah. Year after year, this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty, where Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. So remember, this isn't like going to church on Sunday. You have to actually travel quite a bit. You just do it once or twice a year, and you're offering sacrifices, just like at the tabernacle. Okay? So, and when they offer a sacrifice, they bring the bull or the ram or whatever it is, and the part of it gets burnt up on the altar. But part of the meat goes back to you when you're finished. So keep that in mind. All right. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her and the Lord had closed her womb. Okay, so he's not treating them equally. So Hannah is going to be upset because she doesn't have any children. And Peninnah is going to be upset because he's giving Hannah more than her. All right, verse 6. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival, Peninnah, kept provoking her in order to irritate her. Okay, we all know exactly what that's like. Poke, 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 making her feel terrible. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her until she wept and would not eat. Her husband, Elkanah, would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Don't answer that, Hannah. Once, when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now, Eli, the priest, was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow, saying, Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him back to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. What are we talking about? Nazirite vow, just like Samson. Oh, I hope he's not just like Samson, though. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli, remember he's the priest, he's sitting in the doorway, he observed her mouth. Her lips, Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. And Eli thought she was drunk. And he said to her, How long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine. Not so, my lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. So she ran to God. That was the right thing to do. Eli answered, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. She said, May your servant find favor in your eyes. And then she went her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. So why is she able to eat something? Why is she no longer downcast? Did she receive an answer? Did she get a promise? No, but she knew God heard her prayer. She did what she could, and then we leave the rest to God. All right, verse 19. Early the next morning they arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home at Ramah. Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, saying, "Because I asked the Lord for him." And if you look down in the Bible, my footnote says Samuel sounds like the Hebrew for heard by God. All right, so verse 21. When her husband Elkanah went up with all his family to offer the annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. So annual means it goes once a year. Why doesn't she go? Let's find out. She said to her husband, "After the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always." So whenever he's ready to not stay with her anymore. I don't think this means all the way to grown up. Weaned usually means 4, 5, something like that. He said, "Husband, do what seems best to you," her husband Elkanah told her. "Stay here until you've weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word." So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. This is kind of like Moses. Remember how he got to stay with his mom until he went to the princess? Same thing. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When the bull had been sacrificed, they brought the boy to Eli. And she said to him, "Pardon me, my lord. As surely as you live, I am that woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord." And she worshiped the Lord there. In fact, the whole next chapter is her prayer and her worship. Then Hannah prayed and said, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Do not keep talking so proudly, or let your mouth speak such arrogance, for the Lord is a God who knows, and by him deeds are weighed. The bows of the warriors are broken, but those who stumbled are armed with strength. Those who were full hire themselves out for food, but those who are hungry no more. She who was barren has borne 7 children, but she who has had many sons pines away. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up. The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with princes and has them inherit a throne of honor. For the foundations of the earth are the Lord's. On them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful servants, but the wicked will be silenced in the place of darkness. It is not by strength that one prevails. Those who oppose the Lord will be broken. The Most High will thunder from heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Then Elkanah went home to Ramah, but the boy ministered before the Lord under Eli the priest. So doing what she did was a really hard thing for Hannah, to give up her son like that. I am so impressed that she did it. Thanking God, it was a hard thing, but she knew that she must keep her promise to God. So Hannah left Samuel there at the tabernacle with elderly Eli to serve the Lord. Thanking God for his goodness in answering her prayer, Hannah committed her son to God's care. Hannah and Elkanah said their goodbyes to young Samuel and left. It was a sad time, but Hannah knew it was right to keep her promise to God. Samuel, left alone with the old priest Eli, was quite homesick, I bet, for he had never before been away from his mother and his family. And of course Hannah missed her son, though she continued to feel she did the right thing. Now later, God blessed Hannah and Elkanah with other children. Hannah had 3 more sons and 2 daughters. Hannah's heart rejoiced, but she never stopped thinking about her Samuel. Day by day, whenever Hannah could get time, she worked on a little coat for Samuel to take to him the next time they went to the tabernacle to offer sacrifices. Each year she brought Samuel a new coat, and each one a little longer and a little bigger as Samuel grew taller and older. Samuel and his mother could hardly wait for their next visit together. But we will wait for the next part of the story next time.